Hello, this is Chrysta Bell, a.k.a. FBI agent Tammy Preston, and you're listening to Twin Peaks Unwrapped.
The sycamore trees in the dark trees that blow baby in the dark trees.
And welcome to Twin Peaks Unwrapped. I'm your host, Ben Durant, and beside me is...
Brian Kazaska.
Hi, Brian.
Hey, Ben. How are you?
I'm great, and I'm so excited. Today we have Chrysta Bell.
An amazing person, a wonderful interview. We should just stop talking and just go right into it.
How are you?
Well, I'm doing great. It's a stormy day. It's like it's like windy and flash flood warnings and thunder and lightning and sheets of rain. But I have to say I love it. I'm in Texas right now, and usually I'm in Northern California, and I desperately miss the thunderstorms of Texas, and wow. Boy, did I get one. So I'm actually, it's kind of spooky, but I really like it. It reminds me of my childhood, and yeah, I'm with my mom, and I've got rehearsals every day that I'm here, and I'm gonna leave for Europe on March 30th, which is Friday. Oh my God! Wow. And I'm for like 4.5 weeks, and I'm a little. It's like totally overwhelming, but at the same time, I'm super excited, and it's like more than I can possibly do. So I just do everything I can, and then leave the rest up to destiny.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
It sounds kind of fatalistic for just a tour, but sometimes it feels pretty dramatic because, like, whatever I leave, with in my 50-pound suitcase is what I have, for the next 4 weeks. And we've got such a fast clip on this tour that, there's like, yeah, it's a pretty wild ride, I gotta say, but,
that's awesome.
But I'm super excited. Yeah.
I'm excited for you. It's been a while since you've been to Europe to do a tour, hasn't it?
Well, actually, I guess the last one was November. No, I feel like it's been before. See, like, okay, dates and time. This is not my forte.
No.
But it wasn't so long ago. I think it was November 2017 when I had my last full-on European tour, and they take a good 6 to 8 months to plan. I mean, wow. Some of these shows were booked a year and a half ago, and so they seem like a dream. Like they're like, March 2018. If you book that, in March 2017, it's never going to happen. And then all of a sudden, it's happening, and you're like, damn! Like you got to figure this stuff out. There's so many little details and so logistics, and I have a lot of help, but yeah, it's a bit of a wing and a prayer, like the whole thing. Like you do your best to be prepared, and you never quite know what's going to happen. But that's part of the thrill and the terror, which, it's pretty exciting. I got to say that. And I'm in it with my 3 other musicians that are all like these wonderful people and phenomenal musicians, and I'm very fortunate as far as that's concerned. But yeah, I go to Europe about every 4 to 6 months for these tours because Europe seems to kind of feel me. They kind of have I have a love affair and haven't quite been able to find the sweet spots yet in America. But, a lot of it is that in a lot of countries in Europe, they have grants and support to bring in musicians and to facilitate art that doesn't happen so much in America. So, you, like David says, you got to go where it's hot for you. Don't worry about the rest of it, So I go where it's nice and warm. And although it's frigid, it's Helsinki, it's Finland, so it's 18 degrees, but it's warm feeling. And it works out.
That's so cool. So, new EP out, and you got a few songs out, and one of them being Blue Rose. Were you inspired by Twin Peaks for that one?
A little. I don't know. Speaking for myself, but part of what makes Twin Peaks so special is that there's these super vivid, elements that are iconic. The Blue Rose is so arresting, the idea of it, the enigmatic nature of the Blue Rose. And, and when I think of the Blue Rose, it's just this kind of unattainable, it doesn't actually exist, but there's something about it that's palpable. And when I was, reading the script and, and having to hold it all in because you can't share it. So you're just you're just holding all of this information, and I was, so just kind of in awe that I was going to, that my character was going to have this strong, position as part of the Blue Rose Task Force, and just kind of letting all of this infuse into my being before the actual filming, before, the show is, on the air, before the aftermath or afterglow, both. When all of that was happening, I was just kind of holding it. And the idea of being on the Blue Rose Task Force with the individuals who were also a part of it was just I really just kind of couldn't believe it. And so my expression of, in my life is music. And so the Blue Rose just kind of worked its way into my own expression of music. And I just had to, songs are they're ephemeral, you don't, if a song comes, you just kind of, you don't hold it too tightly because you don't want to scare it away, but you just have to remain really open, right? So the Blue Rose was coming to me in this melody, and kind of just this weeping, kind of epic feeling, and I just went with it.
Nothing in this place fits well like you and me. Nothing in this place fits well like you and me.
Blue Rose came, and I didn't fight it, and it was one of those songs that comes, all at once. Maybe, it's just a month, which sounds maybe like a long time, but for a song for me, for all the lyrics and all the melodies to just kind of to pour out in that amount of time was really, really beautiful. And then I took it to Texas with my songwriting partner, and we kind of fleshed out this waltz feeling with it, and then and then on set, I played it. I played it for David on my phone, and because I was very conscious of wanting to make sure that he didn't feel that I was co-opting or appropriating something that was his. But David doesn't feel like the things are his. He feels like he's presenting things that are in the world in his own way. So it's the same thing where, you know, like I'm paraphrasing, but there was something where somebody was like, well, you know, everyone's doing the chevron thing now. You know, the chevrons are everywhere. He's like, I didn't make up the chevron. He's like, well, you know, why? You know, like, but I mean, come on. I mean, the cultural relevance of the chevron pattern in Twin Peaks is just, it's hugely significant. And so I'm sure that that's a part of why chevron came back in such a big way. But, you know, so when I played Blue Rose for David, he just smiled, and there was so much going on. He said, I like it. And for David, you know, that was enough for me, because he's never shy at giving his strong opinion, you know, one way or another. And really, I don't know how he felt about it, but in that moment, he celebrated my art and you know, and gave me a sweet smile, and that was enough for me, and didn't have any, you know, tightness, or, you know, there was nothing there. So I was like, okay, I felt like that was kind of like, okay. So then many months would pass. And then when I was making my new EP, I really felt like for the song Blue Rose, it was the time for it to come. And there's always a bit of trepidation around that, because again, you know, fans of Twin Peaks, you know, you can rub them the wrong way, man. It is some delicate territory, and I have, you know, a bit of a history of rubbing fans the wrong way. And
not us.
You know, I know. I want to rub the right way. I do, but at the same time, you can't have any attachment to that. As I've learned, you know, you have to just do what you do and give it, and just let it go, and hope for the best, and whatever happens is what happens. But
yeah, I love that Blue Rose song. I really love your song. I mean, I think if I didn't even associate with Twin Peaks, I'd love it. I think I love it because it feels like a special kind of love. Like there's this some kind of special love that you have, that unique love, the Blue Rose. So it's so pretty, and I just love it. I love all your music, but this is, I don't know, there's something special about that song.
I appreciate that. Well, I mean, and that's, you know, however it came about, that's all I'm trying to give. All I'm trying to offer is just, you know, sweet moments with the musical endeavor. Like I give it up, and then hope that it, you know, resonates in some way. And I love that, you know, there have been some really positive, you know, feelings about the song from the Twin Peaks community, which makes me feel so good. And really, it's like, you know, I know it's all scandalous. It's all dangerous territory. It's all like sacred ground. And you know, at a certain point, like, well, I guess I'm gonna go there. You know, and if it brings loveliness to someone's life, then it was worth it.
Now, what's the one question you should ask me?
What's the significance of the Blue Rose?
And the answer?
Blue Rose does not occur in nature. It's not a natural thing. The dying woman was not natural. Conjured. What's the word? A tulpa.
Good.
Coffee time.
We talk about the Twin Peaks community, but you also have your own community. And can you share with our audience, what is the Red Diamond membership that you have?
This feeling that an artist has, you know, a story behind the art, and things that they can share to people that are curious and want to go a little bit deeper into their world. And it's not necessarily the stuff that you put online, because some of it's a bit vulnerable. So it's like, if people really want to investigate, and if they want to get, you know, more thorough background about the art, and the art that I've been a part of, and the people that I've had the great fortune to be around in my life. And I write blog posts, and I post videos that I don't post in other places, and pictures that aren't otherwise available. And it's kind of a way to facilitate a community around the art, and not necessarily so much about me, but other people that might connect through my music and my art that would also be able to find each other. So that's an aspect of my website, is the Red Diamond community. And, it's a few dollars a month, and you support an independent artist, and you dig a bit deeper into her world. And if that sounds delicious to you, then great. If it doesn't, then no problem. It's kind of like, an artist, really, we have to do a lot to survive these days. And part of it is just expanding who you think you can be in order to continue to do what you do. And so my website was really a kind of a tremendous endeavor, and I put so much heart and soul and a lot of energy and time and investment into it, so it could really be a place that could facilitate supporting me as an artist and utilizing the tools that are available. But a lot of it is just my, personal, just expenditure of energy, writing these posts and, putting this stuff together out of love and to a degree out of service, hoping that people are getting something from the experience, and then, to have this, this digital legacy to some degree. What I've really had a beautiful response to is a blog post in appreciation of Miguel Ferrer. And that has been just, to read what people are writing and to be able to read it even myself and kind of go freshly through all these memories of Miguel. It's been a wonderful healing tool, and there's great power in that. There's great healing in these things. It's just ones and zeros, but what you personally put into it and what you can create from this digital universe can be quite profound. So I've put a lot of love into my website, and the Red Diamond membership is something that I've offered to people who, just want to check out, Chrysta and the world of Chrysta and all the wonderful beings that have come into it. And hopefully it gets your engine started and you want to keep going back.
I think it's wonderful.
How did you get the part of FBI agent Tammy Preston?
I like to say, when I feel like I auditioned for about 17 years.
With David, right?
Yeah.
Come on, David knows he has this really strong intuition muscle. I call it a muscle because I do feel like if you work this muscle, if you pay attention to what I call the little voices, I don't know what David calls it, but your spiritual gut. I think there's a difference between instinct and intuition. I know I'm going kind of left field to answer the question, but I think David has a really strong intuition, this inner guidance, and he trusts it. And the more you trust your intuition, I think the more it works for you. And I think David had an intuition that I would be Tammy, and I would be a Tammy that would be fulfilling for his vision. And I think I was never told that Tammy was written for me. I don't think she was written for me. I really feel like David, I know I'm pretty positive she was not written, for me. I think that what Tammy was really super bright. Her descriptor was hyper intelligent and professional. These kinds of things. Tammy was she was a beaming energy that was so curious and very thorough and very enthusiastic, but not, overdone. And eventually I started creating, what Tammy was for me. There was not, like a lot that was drilled into me about who Tammy was supposed to be. I think David knew me as a person, and he had this visualization of Tammy, and he brought the two together, and it worked for him. And I think a lot of that too was, the personal dynamic, and this is also coming just from me. I'm not speaking for David, but the dynamic that he and I have together. There is this kind of like protege mentor thing that, at least from my perspective, I look to David, for all of, these wonderful ways he conducts his life, and I'm really inspired by that. So, and, Tammy certainly, I think, looks to Gordon as being someone who's just very clear and strong and present, but never thinking that he knows everything, but thinking that he's got a good idea of what things are, and he wants to help, and it's for good ultimately. I think Gordon is good, like he's a good one, and Albert is a good one. Like these are beautiful spirits that are in the roles in life that they have, and they're bright and they are capable, and they have this X factor, and that's very just kind of like this capacity for holding things that are extraordinary and on, in the extra, in the world of extraness, and so, maybe, there's something to all of that, but I felt like the dynamic between, Christabel and David did have some similarities between the dynamic, going on with Gordon and Tammy. And so I think there was something to that too. And it all just kind of worked out that David felt like, I'd make a good Tammy. Bless his heart. God bless him.
Tammy, you've been doing excellent work, passing one test after another. Put out your hands. Flip them over. I'm very, very happy to see you again, old friend. This is the spiritual mound, the spiritual finger. You think about that, Tammy.
Christabel, what I really love about your acting performance is the way you're able to say things without actually saying things in dialogue. I mean, the way your body language is, I really connected with that. And I kind of look at the way Tammy reacts with Diane. There seems like they're having like disagreements, but without talking and stuff. Did you see it that way? Did you see it that way when you were performing?
Well, the good news is, even for someone who's not an actor, if you're around people who are great actors, it just kind of, you're just reacting. You're just kind of like, Laura Dern is so gifted that you're just in a moment with the woman who is Diane, and everything around you is facilitating this possibility of being this character. So when everyone's present and everyone is kind of giving themselves over to the moment, these things just happen, and just happen like you would if you were in a room with such a strong entity that is Diane. Things are brought out of you, and Laura Dern was completely encompassing that entity, and things just happen, and then as I'm very comfortable around David at this point, and then, became very comfortable around Miguel. So you've got like just all these entities that are working together, and so things get brought up, and reactions just kind of happen. And as long as, I wasn't trying to be restrictive, and I was just really looking to be in the moment and being Tammy as fully as I could, and letting Christabel just, she's in the back there somewhere, not looking to think too much, but looking to really just be I just made sure I knew my lines, so that was like, that was just flowing from me, right? So as long as the lines were not, I didn't have to reach for them, they were just tip of my tongue. So then I let everything else infuse the character. The lines naturally came out because I knew them backwards and forwards, and then you hope for the best. But, you know, a lot of this was one takes and two takes. I mean, it was happening so fast. There was like, it was, I mean, I haven't been on any other sets, frankly, you know, since a Chinese film with Jet Li 20 years ago, but this was like a well-oiled machine, and it was just happening, and you're not, like, you know, I'm dressed in character. Everyone's in character. David calls me Tammy, whether the camera's rolling or not. You know, once I'm on set, I'm Tammy, and so you're just, you know, with all of those things, and then it conjures up this otherness, and then, you know, you've got Twin Peaks.
And we're very appreciative. What'd you say your name was again? Tammy. Fuck you, Tammy.
You know, you're talking about knowing your lines, but there were a few times probably where there were either Lynch created lines for you at the last minute or created scenes. I mean, wasn't that smoking scene where you're with Diane and Cole kind of like just inspired in the moment there?
We came out to join you, Diane, while Albert's indisposed.
Gordon.
We used to smoke together way back when. You remember?
Yeah, we sure did, Gordon. Sure did.
Thanks, Diane.
That was the only one. Everything else is written to the letter. And I had had a conversation at one point with David, or I'd read something somewhere where, you know, people would improvise, and he was not into that. He was not into that. He really he worked on that script, and he thought about that script, and it was written exactly as he intended. So unless, you know, you're in the moment and he tells you to change something, no, it was exactly. And the one exception was exactly as you're saying, this smoking scene, and that was completely improvised. So it was either to the letter or 100% improvised, which, you know, was such a thrill and you know, horrifying. Like, oh my God, I'm about to improvise this scene with David Lynch and Laura Dern. Are you fucking kidding me? Like, but at the same time, like, the emotions that come up, it's just like, okay, well, if I'm here, I guess I'm supposed to be here, so I'm just going to give it all I've got, and then try to totally, like, get out of myself and just, you know, flow in this moment. And a lot of that was really just working with the dynamic that the three of us were sharing. You know, David and Laura go way, 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 way back. And I was just meeting Laura, just like Tammy was just meeting Diane, and I was intimidated, you know, of course, just like Tammy is intimidated by Diane, but there's also this utterly fascinated. So, like, and with Laura, I was just fascinated. And, you know, Laura is just this very warm, you know, great conversationalist, wonderful, easy to be around. So there's not a part of her personality that's intimidating. It's just her, you know, her beingness that's so, you know, just remarkable and big, you know, magnanimous. She just has a bigness about her. She's an exceptional human. And so that was the fascination and intimidation there. But then being with her and David, you know, while we weren't shooting, I was just, you know, kind of like really just taking in the moment. I think David was seeing how this dynamic was playing out in our little threesome there as we were sharing time, and then just, you know, had this inspiration for us to have an experiment, you know, as he talks about them and see what happens. And then the smoking scene happened, and it was definitely a reflection of
and I love
reality.
that what David does. You think where most directors would cut, he just keeps going, and I kind of love that. I love that, like, you're standing, you're looking, and he just keeps going and going.
Oh, it's incredibly effective. And it's the same in the music. I mean, I had to really get okay with that in the music because they'd be like, David, you know, it'd be like, God, this part's gone on for, you know, a while with no changes. And it's like, that's because you're in the moment. Like, why would you jar someone? You know, and I'm not saying he ever, these were his words. I'm just saying that was what I received. Like, if you're in the moment and you're like cruising in the moment, don't change it just because you feel like, now it's time for something to change. That's I think a symptom of our society too. This like, really fast-paced, high, short attention span, high stimulation, that we've come to need. But David comes from a situation in his childhood where if he wanted a toy, he made it. He went into he got a piece of wood and he made that shit. And that's like, there's this idea of a slow burn that ultimately is way more, I think, like satisfying, than this, high fast-paced, high energy thing that happens. And it's not that that's not appealing too. It's like candy, and maybe like you get the nourishment of like sitting with the moment and feeling the awkwardness and feeling the tension, and there's something really special about that. And David, does it. Yeah.
I didn't kill Ruth. I loved her. I don't know what is happening to me. Why can't you help me, please?
During the Twin Peaks Fest last year, you told everyone about your first, I believe you said it was your first day of filming The Return with Matthew Lillard. Can you share that story with us?
Yeah.
It was such a great story.
Sure. Yeah, well, so the Saturday, I live in Oakland, California, and I came to Los Angeles for the filming, and I was there, like, David wanted to meet on the Saturday before the Monday of filming, just to talk about any questions that I might have, and just to really, he was being thoughtful and mindful and aware that this was my first, television acting experience, and that he, definitely, given me a big opportunity with a certain amount of pressure involved. I think he just wanted to check in. So we had a Saturday meeting, and we had this great conversation, and we were talking a little bit about Tammy, and there was a few moments in the script I had questions about, and he said, so one day, when you have your interrogation scene, I was like, wait, hold up. I was like, Monday, my first scene is the interrogation scene? Because I've been, I was like, David, like, really? He was like, nobody told you? I was like, no, nobody told me. Okay. He's like, don't worry, it's going to be great. I'm like, okay, yeah, okay. And so in a way, it was like this moment of my first day of being Tammy was going to be the most intense day, of really of the whole script for my character personally, as far as like, the focus on her, the nature of the scene. And after you have all of this kind of coming at you, you're like, fuck it, whatever, bring it. I got this. I got it. Yeah, I can do this. The interrogation scene, that's my first scene. And then I just embraced it. And then it was like comically beautiful, like that David believed I could do it. I was like, oh my God, like that's that kind of faith, because I know how much he had writing on. He wanted this show to be great. He wasn't gambling, like he wasn't trying to take big risks. He was doing what he thought would work and risks, maybe that other people would see as risks, but in his world, it all made sense. And so it made sense in his mind that I could deliver this on my first day of shooting. Was just all of a sudden you just like, okay, then I must be able to do it. And that's kind of where that magic comes in. David thinks I can do it. And in turn, so if he has this faith, I can have this faith. And then it becomes your own faith and your own personal faith. And then it has nothing to do with David as much as it has to do with wanting to personally rise to an occasion and give it everything that you've got to, and find this new place within yourself that you didn't know was there. And I think Tammy was doing that at the same time. So it was like both me and Tammy were like expending ourselves to do this thing that we knew we could do somehow, but we were maybe in ways, untested. And yeah, it was a beautiful opportunity to basically rise to an occasion that I might not have chosen for myself because I might have been too scared, but that someone believed I could do. So I stepped into it with all that I had. And then poor Matthew, oh my God, the look on his face when I was like, yeah, it's my first day of, it's my first scene. He's like, what do you mean? Well, I mean, I'm a musician. I've never actually acted before, but I'm really, really excited. And I'm looking at him, and he's just like, "Are you kidding me?" Like, what? I'm bless his heart, and because he had this insane delivery to give, and this performance that took so much. I mean, even between the takes, he was rocking back and forth, and he was rubbing his head, and he had to be in that state of anxiety and overwhelm for the duration of the filming and before he performed. And so because he really, and that's a lot of energy and a tremendous effort, and it's not comfortable, and it's not, it's taxing. It's very taxing, but he was giving it. And then I gave everything that I had. And by the end of it, I remember, Matthew said, he's like, look, I appreciate, because there's this thing that happens where the camera's on you and you're performing for the camera, and the person, who the camera kind of is like over his shoulder, and this is what I learned, now that I've had the experience, like, when I'm performing to Matthew, the camera is over his shoulder, so he's not really on camera. But if he's not giving me something, it's really hard to bring it out of yourself, if someone's not giving it to you, So, and then when the camera's over my shoulder, he's got to be reacting to me. And if I'm not giving something to him, then it's going to be real hard to act to a wall, right? But apparently, a lot of actors in the business, if the camera's not on them, they're kind of just turned off. But for Matthew, every performance that I gave, I was fully in it, whether the camera was on me or not. Because honestly, I thought that was expected of me. But afterward, he was like, I want to give you a little bit of props because you were really in it, even when the camera wasn't on you. And as from an actor's perspective, I appreciate that. And so that acknowledgement went a long way with me because I didn't want him to be so bummed out that he had to perform with, a novice actor in this really challenging moment. But he was able, to give me that acknowledgement, and I felt really good, and I was glad that, I did deliver that. So maybe his job was, a little, I don't know about easier, but on some level, he expressed that appreciation. So I was, I felt good about that. Yeah,
that's awesome.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Follow me a long way down, waves crushing me to bits of hollow grains of rice, broken stairwell, fever heights, wishful thinking, careless drinking, lonely sailor, slowly sinking, cool wet scum beneath
It seems like you're rising to the challenge every day. I mean, you've got this new tour. You're rising to that challenge. You're kicking it off, the Europe tour. Can you tell us where are you going? Like, where are you going to be?
Sure. I mean, yeah, there's a lot of rising. There's a lot of challenge rising, but it's like periods of life. Like this is 4 weeks of like constant, opening and delivering and wanting to just give and give and give, and then I recover for a month. And as I'm recovering, I'm introspecting and I'm digesting all that's happened. It's like cycles. So it's really beautiful like that. But on this particular tour, I have a private show in Madrid for a jewelry company that I that I work with there. But so that won't be for the public. But I personally will be in Madrid, and then I'll go start all the public shows, and it starts in Athens, Greece. And I go to London, and I go to Edinburgh and Glasgow in Scotland, and then from there I go to Mestre, Italy, which is right next to Venice, and then I have 4 dates in smaller cities in Portugal. And then I have shows in Belgium. I go to Paris, which I'm really excited about. And Amsterdam, and I go so I do Paris, and then I do another date in France, in the French Alps, in a city called Chamonix. I go to Finland. I go to Finland and Helsinki and Denmark. I have a show in Copenhagen and Aarhus, which I don't know if you know about Denmark, but it's this fascinating thing that when Twin Peaks was on the air 25 years ago, there were only 2 television stations in Denmark.
Wow.
And Twin Peaks was airing on one of them. So it had such a deep effect on the culture there. And I was told this by a Dane when I did a interview with him, and he shared this with me.
Probably Andreas, probably Andreas, who does
yes.
Peaks there.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yes, absolutely. Who will be at my show in Aarhus because he lives there. But yeah, so I was like, wow, I thought it was just like a whole country, when everybody's tuning into Twin Peaks, like, oh, how
That's
amazing
so cool.
is that? The country is going to be so beautifully affected. And I got to share that with David, and he didn't know. He didn't know that was the case for Denmark. I thought that was super sweet.
Awesome.
But yeah, so I'll do Denmark, and then I end up in Tampere. And then I'm going. So I finish up in the Scandinavian countries.
Well, you got a lot going on this year. So much going on.
Good for you.
Well, Chrysta Bell, it's been so good talking with you, and we could talk forever, but we'd love maybe another time we could have you on and talk more.
Yeah.
I love your album, We Dissolve.
Yeah.
And your EP, your new EP, and you're touring, and you're so
Thank
busy.
you.
It's so exciting. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you both, Ben and Brian. It's been lovely. You super, lots of light, lots of good juju. I appreciate that.
He wasn't going to Philadelphia. He was headed west. A few people who've come in contact with him have gotten physically ill. Are you feeling all right, Albert?
I'm fine, Tammy.
And who is Philip Jeffries?
He's a former FBI agent.
You're wearing a wire, Tammy.
You asked me to.
Right.
Thank you, Chrysta Bell, for being on today's show. We definitely appreciate it. Go out there, get her new EP. It's out now on Spotify, iTunes.
Just for
iTunes
Blue
Music.
Rose. You should get it just for Blue Rose.
Yeah, and we'll end today's show off with a clip from Blue Rose so everybody can get a good taste of what it sounds like. But amazing EP. All her albums are great. And honestly, when we met her at the fest last year, she was by far one of the nicest. With Amy Shields.
Yes.
These two were like hanging out all the time. Super, super nice. I remember I went home, I checked out her music on Apple Music, and I fell in love with it. I thought it was really good. The stuff she did with Lynch is really good, but then she did her last album was just her, and it was amazing.
It is something else. I love her work. It's great to talk about Twin Peaks and her playing Tammy and her involvement with the show. I mean, it was so cool to get to talk to her about that as well.
And if you guys had a great time, please like us on Facebook. We're getting likes constantly. I know Facebook's going through some turmoil right now, but hopefully you stick with it and you can just hang out with us at least. But if Facebook isn't your thing or you want to drop the old Facebook, we're on Twitter.
Yeah, we got a great community on Twitter. I definitely recommend hanging out on Twitter.
Yeah, Twitter's a great time.
And we got YouTube. I mean, there's a community there. They're always posting stuff after our show drops.
Yeah, we appreciate it. Subscribe on YouTube to our Twin Peaks Unwrapped page. Hit the little bell button, and every time a new show drops, you'll get a notification. So that definitely helps. And if you want to support the show, Check out TeePublic. The link is in our show notes. Buy a shirt, buy a mug, buy anything that will help support the show. We appreciate it. Hopefully we'll have some new designs later on. You know, we really haven't changed anything or added anything, but hopefully we got some stuff in the works.
Yeah.
And also, Spotify. We're on the Spotify.
Yes.
Yay. So if iTunes isn't your thing or whatever, Spotify is your thing, go ahead, go on Spotify. You can listen to us while you're playing on your PS4 or Xbox One.
Nice.
How cool is that? You
That's
can listen
so cool.
to Twin Peaks Unwrapped while you're playing Far Cry 5 or you're playing some
while
game.
you're shooting something.
Yeah, yeah. You're playing Fortnite because that's a huge game everybody's playing right now.
That's what my son plays.
Yeah. So there you go. Also, next week, if you're on the Twitter, and we know a majority of our fans are on the Twitter, and if you're not on Twitter, I think you should join Twitter just for this event alone. We're going Twitter Live.
Twitter Live. Last month it was Facebook Live. Now we're going Twitter Live.
Yeah, we're going to change it up. And I think we're going to try to experiment every month if possible. And I feel like Twitter Live is going to be very... we're going to get a lot of views on that.
I think so.
It's a very popular.
Wow, I can't wait. And we should have... JC will probably be joining us, I imagine.
JC will be on the show.
For 25 Years Later site.
It's going to be Thursday...
April 26th.
At 6 p.m. Eastern Time.
And if you can't make it, we'll be having it on our podcast probably that night.
Yeah. We'll do what we just did last time. We'll post the audio that night on our normal feed. You'll still get to hear the show. You'll just miss out on the visual, and you'll miss out on commenting and sending messages, which we want to hear. So join us if you can. Last time we had a ball. We got to read in real time people's thoughts and comments. And I think on Twitter Live, it's going to be like even crazier.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever done Twitter Live, so this will be exciting.
Me neither. This is going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be a lot of fun. So join us next week, Thursday at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. If you're in a different time zone, just Google it. You'll figure it out. I know a lot of people asked me last time, like, what time in UK is that? And I just basically Googled it. So just Google it. You'll figure it out. It's easy. Yeah. Because sometimes I'm like, I don't know.
Is it 6 hours? Is it 5 hours?
5 hours? I don't know. That's what Google's for, I guess. With that being said, Ben.
We'll be back next week.
Live on Twitter.
He calls me from me, yet so
for 1 second? And would you mind saying, I'm Chrysta Bell, and you're listening to Twin Peaks Unwrapped?
Absolutely. You want to say action? You say
sure,
action.
I'll say action.
All right.
I feel like David Lynch for 1 moment here. and action.